Nowhere in Portland is more Portland than Southeast Portland, and in this video, we're gonna show you why. Stay tuned to learn more. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Paul Clem with the Home Team Brokers coming to you from Portland, Oregon. And if this is your first time to the channel living in Oregon, make sure to hit the subscribe button, tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. We talk to people all the time who are moving to Portland, relocating to the area, and as real estate professionals, we love to help with that process. So if that's you, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video and schedule a Zoom call with us. Either way, we would love to help with your move to Portland. So let's talk about Southeast Portland. Southeast Portland, again, is probably the most Portland part of Portland there is. You know, you've seen shows like Portlandia, for example. A lot of what that show talks about or kind of illustrates, it definitely, you know, Southeast Portland encapsulates all of that. And I get asked all the time, you know, is that show actually real? And I always, you know, my response is always probably about, you know, 80% of the way. It's really not that much of an exaggeration, but as you know, and something we've talked about in different videos, Portland is separated into 4 quadrants directionally. So southwest, northwest, northeast, and southeast. There's also North Portland. There's also a little section called South Portland, but South Portland is pretty much southwest, and North Portland is pretty much northeast Portland, or kind of, you know, direct extension of that. So in this video, we're going to talk about Southeast Portland. Southeast Portland has about 20 different neighborhoods, but I would say across the board, Southeast Portland, you get more similarity than you do differences in different areas. The median sale price is about $500,000 in Southeast Portland. There's going to be areas or, you know, particular homes in Southeast Portland where the median sale price is going to be closer to $600,000, $650,000. Southeast Portland is definitely a place in Portland where you can get a starter home for $400,000, $450,000, probably not under $400,000. But relative to the rest of Portland and even the Portland metro area, there are some relatively low starting points for first-time buyers. If we're talking about 2-3 bedroom, 1,000 square feet, starting around there, probably needs a little bit of work. That's something you'll see a lot in Southeast Portland. Is it's just ripe for renovation and renewal. And you've seen this over the years, in particular in the last 15, 20 years. So many of these neighborhoods are just being revitalized, and it's a very dense area. So there's at least recorded about 150,000 people that live in Southeast Portland. That's probably more than that, but this is a very densely populated area. It's primarily a residential area, and you're getting homes that are at least 70, 80 years old, probably more like 100, 120 years old in some circumstances. So you drive up and down any given street in any given neighborhood in Southeast Portland, and you're going to see a home, you know, getting gutted, getting remodeled. A lot of people get in and buy these homes for a relatively good deal, but you know, you might have to come in and spend $100,000, $200,000 rehabbing or remodeling it, even kind of on an as-is basis. Maybe not quite a fixer-upper, but a home that has a lot of original elements. It might need some system upgrades. In some of these pockets that are off some of the main streets, kind of main restaurant bar districts, the price per square foot is still really high because that location is so popular and so desirable. So you will see some areas in Southeast Portland that it'll be pretty surprising how expensive it is, but you get a little bit, not quite off the beaten path, but not quite walking distance to some of the more popular restaurant and bar districts, and you can get some pretty reasonable prices. So again, Southeast Portland has a ton of different neighborhoods. If you look at it on a map, you're gonna see like Buckman, and Sellwood and Woodstock and some of these areas, Montevilla. But really, I think people refer less to some of these areas, unless you live there, refer less to these areas by their neighborhood name and more so by their district name. So people in Portland and in the Portland metro area, when you're talking about Southeast Portland, there are several, probably about 10 different strips, these districts that have bars and restaurants and coffee shops and independent shops and boutiques and theaters and all kinds of great entertainment. And just kind of starting from north to south, you have Stark Street, and then from Stark you go down to Belmont and Morrison, and then from there you go down to Hawthorne, and then down to Division, and then you get to Powell, which Powell is actually Highway 26, so Powell is more of a main thoroughfare. All of these streets can get a little bit congested with traffic, but people are probably driving like 20-25 miles an hour, so it's busy. But Powell is actually a main thoroughfare that cuts right through the middle of Southeast Portland, so not a ton of like nightlife and some of those elements right on Powell, but then just south of Powell you can get into Holgate and Gladstone, into the Westmoreland area, and then into Sellwood, and then also into Woodstock, which is closer to Reed College. These are all areas that are incredibly desirable. These are all areas that people throughout Portland and throughout the metro area come to visit. So they're very high energy, very hip neighborhoods that in some ways all have their distinct makeup as far as the overall feel and what's offered, but there's also a ton of similarity in these different areas. So if you ended up closer to like Westmoreland, Woodstock, or Division versus being up closer to Stark, almost to Burnside, you're gonna get a lot of the same elements as far as, all of the different parks, breweries, great restaurants, bars, coffee shops. You just see a ton of that in Southeast Portland. And then there's some subtle nuances between these different districts, where Hawthorne is kind of the OG, definitely like a bohemian hippie vibe. It's really kind of been like the main drag in Southeast Portland for decades. But then you look at a street like Division, which has always had some bars and restaurants and things like that, but just in the last 10, maybe 15 years, there's a 15-20 block stretch where every block there's 5-story apartment buildings, and then down on the street level, new restaurants, new shops, new bars going in. So you have some areas that have a little bit of an older kind of classic Portland feel, and then you have some areas where you have more apartments, more renters, it's younger, and it just has a little bit of a different aesthetic. I think Southeast Portland overall, you're going to get a pretty good mix in terms of age demographics. I think it's definitely one of the most popular areas for young people and young professionals because there is so much to do in terms of nightlife and great food, great parks. You're close to downtown. There's just so much to do there. But there's people that have been there forever. You get families, middle-aged people. You also get older people that have lived there for 40, 50 years. So you do really get a good mix. I think one thing in particular is that, this area is so dynamic and unique and has a very distinct feel culturally that the people who live in these areas are very proud to call it home. And people that are attracted to Portland and moving to Portland because of kind of the vibe and everything that Portland offers, Southeast Portland is definitely top of a lot of people's lists. And although Southeast Portland is very residential, it does kind of have that urban residential mix with these main districts, these streets that we talked about that are running through. It definitely doesn't have a suburban feel. And so if you're looking for something, an area with larger lots, more of a suburban feel, maybe a little more traditional, or dare I say conservative, Southeast Portland is probably not the best area to start looking. Again, if you're looking for all of these like very prototypical Portland elements, Southeast Portland is probably exactly where you should be looking. Northeast Portland has a lot of similarities. Northeast Portland has a little more variety as far as some of the different neighborhoods and the makeup of some of the different neighborhoods. Southeast Portland is much more just kind of on a grid. There's a little bit of elevation change once you get to about 20th. So you kind of have this hill and then it plateaus. you know, out toward, say, about 30th. So, you know, there's a little bit of variety as far as maybe that elevation change goes. Northeast Portland is going to have a little bit more of that. But again, if Southeast Portland was an area that you were interested in, you know, based on kind of what you've seen so far, you could end up in several different pockets of Southeast Portland and really get it to its full effect. Some of the more kind of sought after areas of Southeast Portland tend to be from about 12th up to 60th. And then from Burnside, even all the way down to Johnson Creek, but probably toward like Woodstock or Tacoma in Sellwood. If you go further south of that, you get into Milwaukee. If you get north of Burnside, you get into Northeast Portland. West of 12th, it's going to be all industrial. So it's more of a commercial district. You do get some restaurants and bars and things like that down there too, but there's like warehouses and loading docks. There is a cool area though down on Water Avenue, which is just 1 block removed from the river. So there's this stretch of Water Avenue in Southeast Portland that has a feel like it's going to be the next Pearl District. There are some businesses moving in there. You know, I think there are like, you know, some tech businesses moving in there. So has a little bit of that feel that it's turning over, but it is a little bit gritty too in some ways as well. You see a lot of tents, for example, so a lot of people who've chosen to make their home on the sidewalk. You do see a lot of that, in particular in this area west of 12th to the Willamette River. Now, if we're talking about east of about 60th, really probably east of 82nd, and then once you get to Interstate 205, east of there, this is like East County, East Multnomah County. It's still a little bit of an urban residential mix, very residential in a lot of ways out there. Home values are much more affordable as you get further east, but you are further away from downtown and you are further away from some of these more popular districts in Southeast Portland. So there's areas of Southeast Portland where you can walk out your front door and, you know, choose from 10 different coffee shops and, you know, try different breweries and restaurants and great parks and things like that. You get less of that the further east you go. So there are some other reasons why east of 82nd and around 205 and east of there aren't necessarily as desirable that we can talk about, but you can get some great living out in those areas too. So depending on your budget, depending on kind of what you want to be in proximity to, how high your tolerance is for certain things, you know, that area further east in Southeast Portland very well could be a good option for you. So, you know, once we're able to connect and talk about your home search and your timeline and everything, those are things that we can start to determine. So there's 2 different school districts that will service Southeast Portland, but it's primarily Portland Public Schools. So you have Franklin High School, which has been recently renovated. It's beautiful. And then you have Cleveland High School, which is closer in right on Powell. Those are the 2 public high schools in Southeast Portland. And then you have that are in Portland Public Schools. And then you have Central Catholic, which is really one of the 2 largest private high schools, Catholic high schools in the Portland metro area. There's Central Catholic on Southeast Stark, and then you have Jesuit High School on Beaverton-Hillsdale Highway in Southwest Portland, Raleigh Hills area, almost just into Beaverton. There's also on the far edge east of Southeast Portland, you have the David Douglas School District and David Douglas High School, which is one of the top 2-3 largest high schools in the Portland metro area by enrollment. And then from there, there's a few middle schools and dozens of elementary schools down the line. So there's a lot of public data on school ratings and things like that. There's probably going to be a lot of variation throughout all of Southeast Portland as far as, you know, some of the information that you can look at. We can help point you in the right direction there. But I mean, you do see a lot of families, young families, growing families in Southeast Portland. I think, you know, the folks that choose to live in Southeast Portland are looking for more diversity. They're looking for more action, kind of a higher energy area, as opposed to more of that suburban kind of laid back feel where you have a little more privacy, less people coming in and out, larger lots and things like that. bottom line, regardless of where you end up in the Portland metro area, Southeast Portland is going to be a place that you'll be hanging out at some point. If that's a couple times a year or if that's every weekend. There's just so much going on and so much to do, and a lot of people choose to live in this area to be right in the action. And if you're moving to the Portland metro area, if you're relocating here, if Southeast Portland is an area that you have on your list, or if you want to talk about different areas, make sure to give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link below in the description of this video and schedule a Zoom call with us. We would love to help with that process. We've helped a ton of people relocate to Oregon. Southeast Portland, again, very popular, so we can tell you all about it more in depth and get a feel for your timeline, your wants, your needs, and put together a game plan to get you started on the right track and ultimately set you up for success. If this video is helpful, make sure to hit the like button and make sure to subscribe to the channel. Click the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. We really appreciate you watching. Again, if there's anything we can do, make sure to reach out to us. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.